Chapter 5. The Line We Draw. By mid-morning, footage from Villa Esperanca was already looping on every major news network. Grainy phone video of the mango tree and what hung from it blurred out by broadcast standards, but not enough to stop the story from detonating across the world within hours. "And we caution viewers, what you're about to see is graphic," said Curtis Lane, standing in a crisp blazer at a safe distance from a cordon of Brazilian military police, his hair immaculate despite the humidity, his expression arranged into the practiced solemnity of a man who had already worked out, before the cameras rolled, exactly how this story was going to make his career. Behind me, the Brazilian armed forces have begun what officials are calling a containment operation, following what witnesses describe as an attack by, and I want to stress, this is still unconfirmed, creatures. He let the words sit there, savoring it, before turning back to the camera with the faintest, careful smile of a man who knew he was about to be famous. In Brasilia, the response moved faster than the bureaucracy usually allowed. By noon, the president had authorized a full military deployment to the Amazonas region under emergency powers, and by early afternoon, transport aircraft were already lifting off from air bases as far away as Sao Paulo, ferrying troops, armor, and attack helicopters toward a stretch of jungle that, 48 hours earlier, had not appeared on a single military planning document. Captain Ricardo Nunes stood in the cargo hold of a Black Hawk as it thundered south over the canopy, running one more check on his rifle out of habit more than necessity. Around him, a dozen soldiers of the 1st Jungle Infantry Battalion sat in grim silence, watching the world through the open door. "Sir," said the young corporal beside him, Alves, no relation, as far as anyone had confirmed, to the family whose farm had been the first attacked. "Is it true what they're saying? That these things aren't animals?" "I don't know what they are," Nunes said honestly. "I know 400 people are dead or missing since last night, and I know my orders are to establish a perimeter and hold it until command figures out what comes next. That's enough for me to be worried about." By dusk, a forward operating base had been thrown up on the outskirts of Villa Esperanca. Razor wire, sandbag positions, a ring of vehicle-mounted spotlights aimed at the tree-line, and overhead, 2 Super Tucano attack aircraft on standby, engines idling, waiting for a target the pilots privately hoped never to see. The moon rose blood-red exactly as it had the night before, and the jungle answered it. They came in waves this time, not the scattered, opportunistic attacks of the first night, but something closer to a tide, dozens of shapes breaking from the canopy at once, drawn by the noise and the light and the smell of so many people gathered in one place. The first spotlight caught 3 of them mid-dive, and the night dissolved into gunfire. "Contact, 12 o'clock, multiple hostiles," someone was screaming over the radio net. And then the words stopped mattering, drowned under the roar of automatic weapons fire and the shrieking of things that did not die easily even when hit. Nunes emptied a magazine into a creature that came at his position low and fast, wings tucked, moving more like a wolf than anything that flew, and it staggered but kept coming until Alves put a burst through its skull at point-blank range. Tracer fire crisscrossed the dark sky in long red arcs, and twice the Tucanos screamed overhead, strafing runs chewing up a stretch of tree-line where creatures had begun massing in a hollow just beyond the wire. It should have been enough. On paper, against nearly any threat the battalion had trained for, it would have been enough. It wasn't. For every creature cut down on the wire, 2 more found a gap, and the perimeter began, in places, to buckle. A field hospital tent near the rear of the base took a direct hit from something that came down out of the dark almost silently, and the screaming that followed had nothing to do with fear of what might happen and everything to do with what already had. "Fall back to the secondary line," Nunes bellowed, dragging a wounded private toward the trucks by his collar. "Fall back now, go." It was somewhere in the chaos of that retreat, amid strobing muzzle flashes and the deep percussive thud of the Tucanos making another pass, that a ragged, half-collapsed figure staggered out of the tree-line directly into the base's southern perimeter, hands raised, screaming something in English that was almost lost beneath the gunfire. "Don't shoot! Don't shoot! We're human, we're—" A soldier nearly cut him down before Nunes threw an arm across the barrel. Hold your fire. Hold. It was Frank. What was left of Frank, at least, stripped down to a torn shirt. One arm wrapped crudely in a strip of his own sleeve, his face a patchwork of scratches and bruises, half carrying, half dragging Alan beside him, who was barely conscious on his feet. Frank's voice broke, exhaustion and horror fighting for control of it. There's a cave, 6 kilometers northeast. That's where they're coming from. That's where it started. You have to. He didn't finish. His legs gave out, and Nunez caught him before he hit the ground, shouting for a medic over the din of the battle, still raging behind them. By the time the moon set and the last of the creatures peeled away from the base, retreating into the dark with the same eerie, coordinated suddenness with which they'd attacked, the perimeter had held. Barely. 23 soldiers were dead. 11 more villagers, sheltering behind the wire on the promise of safety, had not survived the night either. Nunez crouched beside the field cot where Frank lay, and 4-line in his arm, his eyes half open and fixed on nothing. You said there's a cave, Nunez said quietly. You said that's where they came from. There were 6 of us, Frank rasped. Cave diving team. University expedition. We found a chamber, deep down. Carvings. A calendar. It talked about a night when the moon turns to blood. He swallowed, throat working. We woke something up. I don't know how many of us are even still. His voice cracked entirely, and he turned his face away. Alan, on the cot beside him, had not spoken since they'd carried him in. He lay staring up at the canvas roof of the medical tent, one hand loosely curled around nothing, as though it still expected to be holding someone else's. Nunez stood, looking out through the tent flap at the gray light of dawn breaking over a battlefield littered with the dead, human and otherwise, khaki and leather-black wings tangled together in the mud. He keyed his radio. "Command, this is Nunez. I need this relayed to whoever's running this operation from Brasilia, top priority." He glanced back once at Frank, at the hollow, haunted look on the man's face. "We have a location. A cave, 6 clicks northeast of the village. Survivors say that's the source." He paused, choosing his next words carefully, aware of how insane they were about to sound and past caring. "Recommend full reconnaissance and, pending assessment, a strike package on standby. We're not holding a perimeter anymore, sir. We need to close the door this came out of." Behind him, Curtis Lane's crew had already set up at the edge of the base, cameras rolling, capturing the wreckage, the wounded, the dead, for a broadcast that by nightfall would be seen by 500 million people around the world. The blood moon still had 2 more nights left to rise.